Our cover story tonight is about a world domination project going horribly wrong. It's called the Belt and Road Initiative. China has invested its energy, its influence, and a lot of its money into this project. But it's a long road and already bumpy. The biggest pothole is proving to be Pakistan. Pakistan is in the midst of an election, and its economy is on life support. Economic activity has come to a standstill. Pakistan's foreign currency reserves have plunged from a little over $16 billion to less than $10 billion, and it's happened within 12 months, a drop of almost 40% in 1 year. Foreign lenders are wary, unwilling to invest or loan, except for China, which has given yet another bailout package. The latest installment is of $1 billion. China has given Pakistan $1 billion to boost its foreign currency reserves. With this, China has now lent more than $5 billion to Pakistan already. This is on top of the $100 billion, that's the kind of bill that China is running for the China-Pakistan Economic Corridor, the CPEC, which Islamabad has to pay back by 2024. Fat chance of that happening. Pakistan is now trapped in China's debt, and the giant mountain of loans now awaits the next Prime Minister of Pakistan. The converse of this is also true. China, too, is trapped in a cycle of bad debts with Pakistan. They have to keep spending more to save their previous investments, and so the cycle goes on. For the next government of Pakistan, saving the economy will be the biggest challenge. It's hand-to-mouth existence for them. China's billion-dollar loan, which they've just got, will help Pakistan pull through for a month or so. Back to square one after that, with added debt of $1 billion. After the 25th July election, the new government of Pakistan is likely to approach the International Monetary Fund. They want another bailout package. They need it. They were refused one in the past, and now there's a caretaker government in Islamabad. It does not have the mandate to seek the IMF's help. So they will have to wait for until after this election. If the IMF agrees to bail out Pakistan, they may be able to weather the immediate storm, but dark clouds will still be looming. There is China's debt to pay, and a lot of it. In fact, money has not been a problem for China so far. Beijing has used its checkbook to gain entry into India's neighboring countries, India's neighborhood, by financing big-ticket infrastructure projects. These investments are part of China's Belt and Road game plan, but some financing issues may now force the Chinese to rethink their strategy. Chinese investors are now wary of the debt they themselves face and the inability of their partners to keep up with their loans.
More than $1 trillion. That's the kind of money China is spending on its grand infrastructure project, the Belt and Road Initiative. The projects are spread across 3 continents and cover almost 60% of the world's population. Beijing feels the Belt and Road Initiative is the highway that it needs to take to become the world's next superpower. China says that the Belt and Road Initiative is a win-win for everyone. But all these big-ticket investments are on China's terms. Several countries who have joined hands with China face a mountain of debt. Study has found that out of 68 countries that have borrowed money from China for the projects, 23 are already facing a high risk of debt distress. This mountain of debt has now become a concern for Chinese investors. According to a report put out by the New York Times, the value of deals being stuck has now reduced. Reportedly, investors are concerned over the high borrowing costs. The Chinese government has begun conducting an interagency review of various deals. But these concerns are unlikely to halt the Belt and Road Initiative. Late last year, it was enshrined in China's constitution, and Chinese President Xi Jinping is personally leading its charge. So far, lenders under the control of the Chinese government have been financing a large part of the project. Financial returns are not the main motivation of Xi Jinping when it comes to the Belt and Road Initiative. The purpose of this project is driven by geopolitics. Take the case of Sri Lanka. To build the Hambantota port there, China loaned the Sri Lankan government $1.5 billion. Unable to pay back, Sri Lanka had to sign over the rights to control that port to the Chinese for 99 years. China also controls the Gwadar port in Pakistan through a 40-year lease. Beijing is spending more than $55 billion on Belt and Road-related projects in Pakistan. Beijing is trying to strike similar infrastructure deals with Myanmar. Back in 2017, China opened a naval base in Djibouti. All this is part of China's strategy to weave a string of pearls in the region so that it can control major sea routes in the Indian Ocean. Bureau Report, WION.
The Belt and Road Initiative is a long game for China. Most of the investments will not yield gains for several years, and Beijing seems to be fine with that. The biggest beneficiary of the Belt and Road Initiative is China's emerging construction sector. Makers of steel, which were producing in surplus, have now found suppliers. Contracts for construction in Belt and Road projects are with Chinese companies. In fact, instead of hiring local workers, Chinese laborers are flown in to work on the BRI construction projects in different countries. It's the biggest infrastructure project in modern history, and it has become a catalyst for Chinese economic activity. So far, so good. But this activity is fraught with a lot of variables. The Chinese investments are made in troubled lands. Governments change along with their policies. Poor countries are not able to repay. So here are a few questions. Strategic heft is fine, but how much money can one keep pouring in to just gain influence? What about the balance sheet? How strong are Chinese shock absorbers? How much bad debt can they survive? Can the Chinese economy sustain the Belt and Road Initiative? How much will it be hurt by the debt crisis that looms on 23 participating countries? The simple answer is China's BRI is a double-edged sword. It cuts both ways. China is facing a debt crisis of its own. While Beijing denies that it faces a mountain of debt, some estimates put the figure at nearly 40% of the GDP. And that's only one part of the problem. According to other reports, which came out last year, the debt of Chinese state-owned enterprises stands at 115% of the GDP. Remember, China has engaged several, if not all, of its state-owned enterprises for the Belt and Road Initiative and related projects. Their responsibilities range from financing these projects to execution, even completion. So the financial health of these enterprises, Chinese state-owned enterprises, is key to the country's economy. And these enterprises are bleeding. Apart from the BRI, China's growing economic footprint has also sparked concerns. Beijing has given out several loans to friendly countries, sometimes for economic development, sometimes to even bail them out. And to the worry of China watchers, the number of countries that are unable to pay back their loans is steadily rising. Let's go beyond our neighborhood and take a closer look at China's debtors. Reports say that China gave Venezuela more than $60 billion in financial aid. But what happened to Venezuela? The economy has collapsed. The International Monetary Fund expects inflation in Venezuela to touch a whopping 13,000% this year alone, in 2018. Let's take the case of Argentina, which has again received loans worth billions of dollars from China. Last month, the International Monetary Fund infused $50 billion into Argentina's economy. As inflation and government spending spiked, what is common between Argentina and Venezuela is this: they cannot bear the burden of Chinese debt. And these are just two examples. China has been using its checkbook to gain influence around the world. On several occasions, it has traded money in exchange for influence, not for financial gain, but for diplomatic victories. Beijing buys votes at world bodies like the United Nations. For the moment, this is China's policy. Experts say it's not sustainable in the long term. According to the Nikkei Asian Review, the Belt and Road project has hit roadblocks in 7 countries: Indonesia, Sri Lanka, Kazakhstan, Bangladesh, Poland, Laos and Pakistan. China has triggered a political movement in Malaysia. 92-year-old Mahathir Mohamad returned to power on the back of a strong campaign that criticized China's growing influence in his country. It's only a matter of time before others also see the writing on the wall. So even with healthy coffers and a 6.7% growth rate, China may have bitten more than it can chew.